I'll just put it on the table, so. We're recording. No,
I'll get those.
Okay. Mayor, we are ready, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, and this is the Cottonwood Heights City Council work session. The first item on our agenda, this past spring, the Utah Recycling Alliance had an event at City Hall, and we're excited today to have the president of URA, President Joe Flecker, and Representative Robbie Overson here with us to talk about how that event went and maybe what future event might look like. So we'll invite you guys up right away, up to the table. If you maybe come over there. Yes, then you'll be heard in the microphone for those online. So thank you again for coming. We're excited to hear how this all went.
Oh, okay. So I'm Robbie Overson.
Jill Fletcher.
So awesome thing for us is that we live in this community. So this is a great opportunity for us. And so we just like to cover some of the things that we did with this event. So Utah Recycling Alliance is the name of the nonprofit organization. Jill's on the board. I am not. I am the lead for the CHARM event. That's what this event was. CHARM is an acronym for Collection of Hard to Recycle Material. And it's a community event that is intended to offer to any given community who would like to participate to essentially do what we would call a pop-up event that allows residents to come in and bring a material that is technically recyclable but doesn't belong in the blue bin, right? So we had that event on the 8th of June, and I just want to cover some of the data that we collected, right? So we diverted, in terms of how, a total of 4,016 pounds of material in 3 hours, including 900 pounds of scrap metal, 766 pounds of electronics, 740 pounds of tires, 600 pounds of mattresses, and a variety of other things. And in terms of the types of hard to recycle material, all of the things that we collected, plastic clamshells, batteries, bicycles, carpet padding, cell phones, lots of different types of e-waste, ink and toner cartridges, light bulbs, mattresses, metal, oral care, plastic film, snowboards and ski gear, socks, styrofoam, and tires. Now, in terms of how many vehicles participated in that event, there were 75. And of those 75 vehicles, one of the things that we did is we wanted to get an idea. We asked everybody how they heard about us, what zip code they live in, so we could get an idea of where people came from. So of the 75, 47 of those vehicles came from 84121, so here locally. And then there were 3 other zip codes that were included in that. And in terms of how people heard about us, we have an internal email list. So some of those came from there. We posted a lot, on social media. There was an announcement in, it was a little bit late, but it was in the June newsletter, which came out the day before the event. So in terms of having it being advertised successfully, we wouldn't say it was like super successful in that regard. However, having 75 vehicles show up was actually a really good response. And the amount of material that we got. And one of the things that we did is we did a survey. Only about 12 people participated in that survey, so we asked questions like, let me just pull this up here real quick. Have you ever heard of a CHARM event? again, what zip code did you come from? Would you like to see this in the future? Are you willing to donate? Who should, where should the money come from? What kinds of things would you expect to see collected in an event like this? What's your interest level in just in recycling in general? What's your commitment level? Those are some of the questions that we asked in the survey. And of the, let me just look here. It was actually 15 responses. Everybody was a 10 on like what their experience of the event. Everybody was interested in doing one of the questions we asked, would you like to see this event in the future? Would you like to see it once a year, twice a year? So almost everybody said at least once a year in our community. I'd say half of them said, I'd like to see it twice a year. People even suggested other material that we could collect. And we do have a fairly extensive list of different material that we would like to collect, that we're working with different recyclers to participate with us in this event. So anything else that?
Yeah, we've had lots of people say, when are you coming back?
Yeah.
They loved the event. They loved that it was here close to the community. Usually we're in Salt Lake City, in that area. And so we felt like it was really good to be right here in our community and helping divert that much material. I mean, that's 2 tons of material that we diverted from the landfill from being buried. So we have.
Yeah. Ellen Burrell came, we had an awesome conversation. And we've, from this event, Holiday City, between Ian and maybe Mike, Holiday City reached out to us as well. We're getting communities, cities all over the valley who we're in conversation with, because bottom line is really a lot of community members all over the place. They want to be able to know that they have an outlet for some of this material that again, it's recyclable, but it's a matter of, where do they take it? And what we want to provide is a single solution outlet, so that, and then we'll manage it.
Are you able to share the other zip codes with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Got them there?
Yeah, I have them. So we had 84047, 84093, and then the other one that's classified as Cottonwood Heights is 84171, but we didn't have any in that zip code. And then we had 24 participants that came from other zip codes outside of Cottonwood Heights.
171 is PO boxes. That's why they're not residential addresses. It's a PO box.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's good to know.
And 84093 is also Cottonwood Heights, some of Cottonwood Heights.
Okay, because
Yeah,
that's
84093. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was included in our Cottonwood Heights demographics. And we had 3 from 84093.
How often do you do these events throughout the valley?
So we had one last weekend in the Yale Harvard neighborhood, and we had about 90 cars participating in that event.
And that was the 3rd year?
Yeah, it was our
They've done
3rd year
it?
of doing them.
Doing
So
it.
we do one at the Hogle Zoo in April. We work with Salt Lake City we're gonna be doing some on the west side of Salt Lake City next year. We talked to Taylorsville and Holiday about doing these 2. So we average do about 4 to 6 a year, depending on what partnership we're working with.
Well, I am so excited about this. I was when I first heard about it, and to meet and to know both of you, I just really
Yeah,
appreciate
it's really
bringing
fun.
this to Cottonwood Heights.
Yeah.
And it occurs to me that if we want to share and promote this, perhaps instead of holding it twice a year in our parking lot, what if we saw to it whether they're the cities that surround us, Holiday, Midvale, Murray, Sandy, we might rotate it around the region, and, people will know, oh, well, in the fall, it's gonna be in Holiday, and then in the spring, it'll be back in Cottonwood Heights, and then that way we could share the cost, and yet the personnel, it seems to me, once you get it in a location, you could always ramp up a few more people if you had 150 cars instead of, 60 or 90 cars. Because I was there and it wasn't there was a few times that cars were backed up.
Yeah.
But it was really effective if you had seen the way they would walk over, like Robbie and I'd be talking and go, gotta go. And then he'd go if there was 2 cars that pulled into the parking lot. So then he'd talk to one and another URA person would talk to the other, and they'd say, oh, what are you trying to recycle? Oh, you want to come around here? And they'd explain it as they came in. it was so efficient.
Yeah, and
it
it's
was really-
educational at the same time,
Yeah.
because we're able to talk with each person, find out what they have, and if they have something like, people, they brought us something that wasn't recyclable, would say, oh, we're sorry, that's not recyclable, like, we can't take that, or yes, we can take that,
Yeah.
so it's a good opportunity to talk to the community about how to recycle properly.
Yeah, a lot of people really do want to understand and know what is recyclable. And a lot of response that we get is people saying, oh, I had no idea you could do that, right? So hopefully, our intention is really to create this as a consistent event here and in any other city that we can, that will invite us and have us in. Do it 1 or 2 times per year, and then use that as an opportunity to help to educate the public, because my belief really is that we'll probably be overwhelmed at some point, because now people know what they can keep, right? And then what to collect throughout the year.
Well, I think people would be willing to hold on to things if
Absolutely.
they knew, oh, in 2 months I'll be able to unload it.
Mhm.
But people aren't willing
Yeah.
to store things indefinitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Styrofoam
Yep,
and all those
exactly.
things.
What are some of those items that you're getting? I'm guessing batteries, or do people bring things like those that need to be disposed in a proper way? And the reason I
Yeah.
ask is, I'm wondering if, we contract with Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling, if they could participate in a function of, there are some of those items where people can't recycle, but there are some of those other hazardous items that can be brought in conjunction with an event like
Yeah.
this, just a
We
thought.
would have to work with Salt Lake County Health Department on that, because they're the ones who handle hazardous waste. It wouldn't necessarily be Pam or Wasatch Front Waste. We could partnership with them, but they take all their stuff to a MRF. And a MRF is a material recovery
Yeah.
facility where it's sorted. We don't take our stuff to the MRF. We find vendors that specifically take styrofoam, that take carpet pad, that take mattresses, that recycle metal. And that way we can ensure it's getting recycled properly. And so that's why we're a little bit different than Wasatch Front. I mean, we're happy to partner with them, but I believe they can take hazardous waste either. It would have to be through the health department.
Yeah, and that's partly what we're figuring out, right, is in developing those relationships with the different recyclers / vendors of what type of material that we can accept and where we can take it, right? And it changes on any given
And
moment.
yeah, and people did bring us paint and we would tell them, please take it to the Sandy
Yeah.
hazardous waste facility.
Yeah.
Here's their hours.
Yeah, certain material we're just
Yeah,
not
we're
legally
not allowed
allowed
to
to take.
Would it be possible to get that list that you have of recyclable items and put it somewhere on our website to say, keep in mind that these are recyclable,
Yeah,
don't
100%.
just throw them in your regular trash, just as a community service.
Yeah.
Bit of information, and then that would be placed also to put down the.
Yeah.
The next time.
Yeah, where the alternative is in the meantime too.
Mhm, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that would be
That's a
good.
good idea.
100%.
Any other questions?
Questions? Nothing
Alright.
from me?
We provided a summary sheet for you guys to read over if you guys want to discuss further partnerships in the future, or you guys have any follow-up questions, we put most of that data in there.
Okay, that's good.
So, thank you. Yeah, feel free to reach out for any questions you guys have.
Yeah, and then maybe this is something we'll discuss on your own, but just future events or doing it next year or when that next event would be.
Well, yeah, we'll put it on a work session agenda here shortly and
Yeah.
and go over it
Okay,
again.
well, yeah, thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity to let us come into Cottonwood Heights and
Yeah. And to report
provide
back.
that service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're welcome.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Okay, we're gonna move on to the review of our business meeting agenda for tonight. So actually I failed to mention, and I'll mention it here and again, but so our Culture HR Records Director, Paula Melgar, has accepted a position with a different city, and so she's going to move on, but I wanted to personally thank her for her investment and time and love for Cottonwood Heights, and I know that that's sincere on her end. We're gonna miss her. I'm gonna ask that maybe, I know you, 2 or 3 meetings ago, you did the pledge. Would you be willing to do it one last time?
Will be my own.
Okay, great, thank you, and you'll be missed, Paula, so thank you. After a citizen comment period, we'll have 5 action items to consider as a council. Beginning with 4.1, consideration of ordinance 421, amending Title 19 of the Cottonwood Heights Code of Ordinances, a text amendment. So Mike,
Yeah,
Don't bore us.
we talked about this. Well, it's a pretty technical, it might be considered
Just
boring.
kidding,
Yeah, this is our yard, we call this our yard elements text amendment update. About quarterly, we go through and kind of take a list of common questions and calls that our staff is getting and take that through, a text amendment process to clean up portions of the ordinance. This one is mainly focused on yard elements like, hey, do I need a permit to build a gazebo or an arbor or a planter bed? And what's the difference between these things? And is a pool considered an accessory structure or is it different? So I went through the summary of those changes at the last meeting. I'm happy to do it again if you'd like it, but we're just bringing that back for action. This has been through planning commission. They've recommended approval. So it's just ready for your vote before codification.
Great. Anybody have questions, comments, want them to go through any of it?
Is anything different from what you presented last?
No, it's exactly the same.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Mike. Next is item consideration of resolution 2024-58 and 59 together declaring certain property surplus and declaring police K-9 OD surplus and authorizing sale. So Chief, I'll let you address both items.
Okay, first one we've had this discussion before where we're clearing out our armory and we're changing weapons. We've returned military style weapons. If you notice at the banquet, they were carrying cowboy guns, their actions they were. But we had a variety of handguns in the arsenal, everything from 10 millimeters to 45s and 9 millimeters, 380s, 38s. So we were reducing that to single caliber so that we can train on it. At the time there was some argument on what was the most effective round. I think we're to a point where we know what works best and we want to be uniform. It's a NATO 9mm round. Having said that, the weapons we use get a lot of rounds fired through them. So what we're proposing is that we not only we surplus those weapons and trade them in for new generation guns that have fewer rounds and are more dependable. But we're reducing the amount of calibers and just going to the 9mm. In addition, those weapons have the traditional sighting system, which is two in back and one in front that you line up. New weapons have this one. This is going to say it is unloaded and cocked back, but it has a system here, and it's called a Olson sight on it. And what you do is you simply look through the glass and it's lined up. It's attached to the weapon, and it never goes dead. And it's really quick because it has a red. I can show this to you when you pull with it. You have a red big round dot with a crosshairs through it that you can hurry acquire the target. And what we found is it's increased our scores remarkably. With all of our shooters, even the ones that were skilled and the ones who weren't skilled, it got them to a much higher score. So the shot placement in our business is incredibly important. Speed is important. So the weapons we're buying actually all have this new sighting system on them. So we would ask for your support in declaring the 19 weapons surplus. We'll trade them in and upgrade the guns. Any questions about that?
Yeah, which weapon did you settle on?
This very one here, and it comes in two different sizes. This is an administrative size, so smaller.
Manufacturer?
They're Glocks, I'm sorry. Yeah,
The 9mm Glock, right?
and the patrol guys use the same version, only it's a little bit longer with a little bit more capacity, but they're very lightweight and Glock is very a very dependable weapon. You can actually drop this gun in mud, pick it up, and it will continue to fire and cycle appropriately. And we don't have as far as the 1911s were developed in World War II, and there are certain drills because they kept malfunctioning and we had to train on that all the time. We don't have that here. So it's an ease in training. So any other questions?
No, thanks.
I would encourage you to take a look.
Yeah,
at the
move on to
sighting
59.
system. It's really fascinating. The other one is, our service dogs, as you know, have a usable, functional, they live for, and those animals live for 12 years on average, right? But the average working life of the dog is about 7-8 years. If you get 9, you're lucky. But we're to the point with Odie that he is 7.5, so we were getting ready to replace him. And, he wasn't showing signs of aging, but he was showing signs of his skills depleting. So we purchased a new dog. In fact, we didn't purchase it. I have a donor who is anonymous. And he met her before in her family. They've donated to me for 16 years. And this dog was $11,500 to replace. So she came in the other day and wrote a check for $12,000 just in case we needed anything extra. That money you'll see come to the city. And then the fiscal guy doesn't usually fight me. He puts in a budget amendment for you and then it comes back to the police department. And so with the remaining dogs, we surplus those and we usually put them with the family that they've had, so we don't remove them from the family. In this case, however, this dog has been moved around and had a couple different handlers and is used to several people in the department. So we'll surplus it, only it's gonna go to Lieutenant McHugh's family instead of Houston's family who got the new dog. He has 2 personal dogs and 4 would be too many. 3 is enough. So to answer any questions,
3 is too many.
I will bring in the new dog and show you. I asked the donor if she'd like to come before the council so you could meet her again and say hello. And she told me that she quoted the scripture and said, the left hand's not supposed to know what the right is doing. You do these things because it's the right thing to do and not because of. So
well, please express, our gratitude and what a generous person. So,
she's wonderful. And she lives in the city.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Item 4.4, consideration of resolution 2024-60, approving and ratifying a bid and awarding a construction contract for the Banbury Road Crossing Project. So our Public Works Director, Matt Ship, will give you some time to go over this and I'd like to have, we let Matt get through his presentation and then we will be able to engage him after that.
Hey, Mayor and Council, well, before I start, I just received notification yesterday via email from SS4A that we received a planning and demonstration grant, the planning and demonstration grant of $400,000, which is for, if you'll recall, 2600 and Fort Union from in front of town center area. So we received a planning and demonstration grant. We did not, however, get the implementation grant for out here. So we received one of the grants, the smaller grant for that. Just FYI, there's a lot of paperwork now. I'm in the process of trying to get filled out and get things rolling on that. But I just thought I'd bring it up since I just got notice on that and let you know. I guess I should say official notice yesterday. So the crosswalk that we're discussing right now is here at Bywater Park on Banbury Road. This is a raised crosswalk, which is it's a table, a crossing table, if you will. And it's being proposed and we've designed it such that it'll go right here just east of the access road going into Bywater Park. Part of this project also is to make the connection. I apologize, I got these things turned on. Let me turn the parcels off. Should have turned them on. There we go. It will go from where the sidewalk ends right at this location, and we'll be tying it back into where the sidewalk is at this property. This, for reference, is the cemetery's property. The mortuary is this big piece of ground. So what the proposal is, or what the design is, to extend the sidewalk from one point to the other, put the crosswalk in right here. That is a raised crosswalk. I'm going to show you, give you a brief look. I'm going to pull up another screen here of what the crosswalk itself, what it's going to look like or what it's proposed. Just to give you an idea, these are the construction drawings, so I apologize. They're not artistic renderings, but they're construction drawings. You can see the road going into the park here. This is Banbury, north is up on this photo, on this drawing. The crosswalk is, like I said, it's a raised crosswalk. It's roughly 26 plus feet across with a 4-foot walkway on top. In the middle, you see these two islands right here. There is tree plan for this location and tree plan for this location. Now, one of the purposes of this is, one, to allow safe passage for residents who would like to get to the park and not have to cross over Banbury without a safe passage, who live on the south side. Another purpose is, we talked a lot about traffic calming. This is in fact when you talk about traffic calming, this is one of those that you will have to slow down quite a bit to get through here. As far as speed, they'll be posted. And if you choose to go over that speed, you will take a chance on some vehicle damage. So it truly is. There will also be on this, just FYI, the flashing beacons, the RRFBs that you push. And so this will be an enhanced pedestrian crosswalk, raised crosswalk, so that you can, get from one south side to the park. The location, now this is the first one of its kind in the city, first time we're doing this. So when we were doing these things, we tried to check off all the boxes from the council's discussions and things we have done about location. We picked this. This is also on Banbury, which is part of the byway that was proposed by the PTOS committee, and the PTOS committee helped to design the byway. And this crosswalk is on that byway. And if you'll see, you can see from here at 2700 through to over here at the park that does not yet exist, over at the Racket Club, Canyon Center, thank you, over at the Canyon Center. So, and one last note, like I said, this is the first of its kind. In essence, it's sort of a test pilot. It's a pilot, if you will, to see if we like it and it's functioning and it works the way we know it should work. One of the reasons we did choose this location as well is because of the geometry and the stormwater. Where that's going in is actually a high point in the road. Therefore, we didn't have to do any storm drain or any modifications to a storm drain, and kept the cost down as we did this. So it's a program we can look at and decide after it's in, run it. Do we want to start looking at these at all of our parks? An idea, something to consider, different locations at parks. But anyway, so that is the project. I know that there has been some concern expressed. I just wanted to share with you, we've gone out, we've had it designed. It's designed to go in this location based on the water, the storm water. And it was really the residents on the south side over here who wanted to come over and access the park. It's built for that. And any residents along here who are close enough who want to walk this place and cross there, it's also for that. So that's what you're voting on tonight. If you would like to move forward with the project and approve the contracts there in front of you for the business meeting tonight. And that's what I have on this.
So moving it to the east or the west could require storm drain.
There could be storm, I'm not saying there is. This was the best location because, like I said, this is a high point, and the way this is built, it actually comes up to the height of the curb. So it goes across the curb and gutter. So there's no water that runs underneath it. So if it's at a high point, the water will shed and go east and west to the stormwater system. In another location, in a low spot, if we put that in, there will be modifications. And I don't know what the modifications are. I don't want to scare anything away saying it can't be done. Anything can be done. But there would be modifications if it's in a low spot, or in another location, we would perhaps have to put up a siphon system, a couple of sumps. I don't know the answer. We would have to look at it. So And also, we would need to have it redesigned if we chose to move it from this location. But anything's possible. I'm not going to say it's not, but this is what's before you tonight on the vote for the contract as designed and laid out. So, Mr. Mayor,
So I know Councilmember Burrow would like to speak to this, so I'll turn some time to her.
Thank you. 4:39. I made a diagram that I'd like the council to consider. And that shows that if you don't mind going in a little bit on this, then it might be easiest for me just to talk this way. Can you, there?
right there.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So at the Bywater Park open house last fall, parents who have children in this area came when they found out I was their representative. They talked to me about Bywater Park and about how their children access it. Their children, and off this map, there's further houses here, that a parent could instruct their child to stay on the south side of Nut Tree that then turns into Banbury. But the reality on a hot summer day of a child being willing to go stay on the south side of the road when they now see where their entry point is into the park, which is here. This is where the playground, the slides, the swings, the access to the fields are, even the access to the tennis court. They could access all of it from this western edge. And so these parents were asking me, why can't there be a crosswalk somewhere where our children can get across Nut Tree and enter the park? And so, you know, even there are residents that are concerned with Nut Tree goes this way.
How is that not the exact opposite problem from the southwest residents?
Well, if you scroll out again, these crosswalk that has existed for many years. Oopsie. Oops.
Sorry, it's
Okay.
moving without me.
Yeah. So the crosswalk that has existed for many years has been where Brighton Way comes into Banbury, right here. And the fact that there is no sidewalk here is because, well, there's just been no sidewalk here on this north side of the mortuary for decades, forever. And so what I would like the council to consider, and I'm all for a raised crosswalk. I think that's really exciting. I think we need to remember this is our first formal neighborhood byway. And so it is foundational to what we decide the standards for other neighborhood byways will be. And what I would like to have deeper consideration for is how do we serve the children and all pedestrians who are trying to get to this park? Because you got to remember, yes, now we're building a park over at Canyon Center, but for a lot of these children, they're coming here to this park for a lot of reasons. And so there is a dip in the road right here where, this street is, whatever I wrote here. It's, boy, they help me.
Circle.
Walnut Way.
Walnut
So
Way.
this is Walnut Way. And if you've ever driven here, there's a severe dip in the road here that naturally slows cars down. And what I would like the council to consider, you know, we know sidewalks are tremendously expensive. And while a flashing light, I think is definitely appropriate for our heavier collectors, places like Fort Union and places like that. But the speed limit on this road is 25 miles an hour. If you're going 25 miles an hour, you can stop your car and so to me, if monies are finite, we have to be really judicious what standards we set. So as we do additional neighborhood byways throughout the city, they are financially sustainable and it makes sense. And what I would like to advocate for is a raised crosswalk closer to where it used to be. As you may notice, there's only one residence here. And if you've walked on a hot summer day, you know that you're not only seeking shade, but you're seeking your destination ASAP. And I can tell you, and I'll put my reputation on this, children and adults are not gonna walk around a cul-de-sac on a hot summer day that has no shade trees. There's no shade trees, no shade, no shade, no shade, to come all the way over to here to enter the park when they likely are wanting to get here. So on a hot summer day to walk along this side of, and come in here is undesirable for pedestrians. And what we don't want, because this is a blind curve, is for any child to get struck by a car coming around this curve, and the child it's gonna be a natural thing for them to want to get over to the north side of the road and come into the park
So you're proposing 2 crosswalks,
that are perhaps
Place-
not without flashing lights.
place of flashing lights and the sidewalk.
Correct, because I checked in and I'm not questioning the quotes, but this is a really fancy, wonderful raised crossing. And so I think that a more modest raised crossing could still be had. It could be located here where we would not need to have the sidewalk. And then it would facilitate all of these many residents who are coming this way. They'll still be able to safely get to this west edge of the park and enter the park. But then to have another sidewalk for all of these residents, especially the children, to be able to cross at this location and walk and get into the park here.
Is there existing sidewalk on the whole north side?
I beg your pardon?
Is there existing sidewalk on the entire north side?
Correct, that's correct. There's sidewalk all through here on the north side. The only spot that I know of without sidewalk is right here. And so,
I'm gonna say for me as a pedestrian, if I'm coming from Brighton Way, I'd probably jaywalk instead of walk all the way up to that other crosswalk, the proposed crosswalk. Because it's
you
a
might
narrow,
still try to cross at the place you've always crossed.
Yeah.
So I don't, I mean, unless it's major storm, you know, I know that I appreciate that our public works director has explained that there could be stormwater issues. But if there could be a crosswalk located more over where it always was over here, and then save the money that you would have otherwise sent to build a sidewalk here. And add another crosswalk for the safety of, again, all these residents.
If I know as much about roads and crosswalks as I do about Mars, which is not much. So-
Some questions.
It has a ring around it.
Yeah, I'd
No,
love,
that's Saturday.
I'd love your insight to what you think, what works.
I'm gonna tread lightly here. This type of crosswalk I know for a fact works. I built 5 of these through a park in Highland when I was the city engineer there. We slowed traffic down drastically through a park area and made it extremely safe for pedestrians to cross. Well, probably 4. I don't want to exaggerate. There were 4.
Could I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Don't lose your train of thought, but it seems to me that drivers, when driving through neighborhoods with houses, slow down. And when they see stretches where there aren't houses, they speed up. Is that
It's once again, it's a comfort level. When you talk about traffic calming, it's the comfort level of driving. Typically a driver, they know they're in a neighborhood. You generally find in a neighborhood like this, your 85th percentile is pretty close to your posted speed limit. You know, you got a mile or 2 above or below. But when you do get in open stretches, it does relax things. You do go a little quicker. I'm not saying that to advocate this particular location or the other location. I'm just saying that that's just driver behavior. But as far as, like I said, crosswalks are concerned, this is a very beefy one, yes. And a lot of some of the sidewalk, we checking the boxes, if you will, connecting sidewalks in the city. Is one of the things that we've been trying to do. We apply for grants for these things, so we're checking that box. We're checking the box of a safer crosswalk. One of the things, if I may, about the Brighton Way crossing, that is sorry, let me pull that up. I'm gonna see if this will.
There wouldn't be any reason for people coming from Brighton Way to not walk on the southerly sidewalk to the crosswalk.
And
Kind
part,
of.
and
Why?
part of it is.
If there's a safe sidewalk that's raised, they're still going the
Because the
exact
perception is
same
just
way.
I jaywalk across Creek Road all the time because there's a crosswalk that I can walk a block and a half to.
But you're going that block and a half anyway. That's all I'm saying is there's literally no reason for somebody to cross there versus there. It won't take them any longer to go that way. People don't like to go out of their way.
The thing about crosswalks is people are gonna jaywalk in all sorts of places. You can only put it there. You are providing a safer passage for you to cross that road. That's the key. Behavior is not gonna be 100%, and you can't control that. I think if there is some duty to provide a safe passage though. Now where,
Well, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for the treed islands. I think that, the trees on the island, if we could still do that within a package of not more than 80,000. But as far as a flashing light in a place where we should be having these cars going 25 miles an hour. So I'd love to see a bid that includes the island with the trees, but forego the RFP, the RRFP. And see what one raised crosswalk and perhaps one standard one near the dip in the road at Walnut and Nut Tree.
I haven't seen one of these specifically. I'm a little worried that if you don't have those flashing lights, that if someone is crossing and there is vegetation, that if somehow you're not seeing a person crossing through over those trees. I don't know how likely that is. I don't know what trees, I don't know the size, but that would give me some pause that if you didn't have those lights.
The absolute
know.
main safety metric is speed. Speed is the major factor when it comes to pedestrian deaths and injury. And so as we slow our streets down and provide crossings and we give parents the tools to say, okay, 8-year-old Matt, here's the way that you can get safely to the park. And I think we're doing that definitely with what the Public Works Department has put together for those people who live to the southwest. But for the people that live to the southeast, they are not being given a safe route to get to that park, in my opinion, because they will not walk on a hot sunny day on a sidewalk on the opposite
Yeah.
side of where they're trying to go.
I don't
My
disagree with
concern
that.
is, I like the lights because when we get to the fall and the winter and the spring, those dark evenings and dark mornings are a concern for me.
I agree.
And then having sidewalks completing our city, I think is just critical. You just take away the people walking on the street and kids riding their bikes in the street when you add that sidewalk. I'm a huge advocate for the continuation of that sidewalk.
If Mayor and Council, if I may, there has been questions about the corner of Brighton and sorry,
Brighton Way. and-
Brighton Way
Yeah,
and
thank you for
Yeah.
bringing this up. This is really awesome.
okay, so presently this is a three-way stop. It is not one of the reasons, this is another one of the reasons, well, there's a few reasons at this intersection we chose to move it down a little ways to that point. And they are this: one, it's a three-way stop, and as this three-way stop, the police might be able to help answer this question, but this is a very much a roll-through stop. It's not very safe for anybody, if you will, because putting a stop on this road, the through road, we've taken stop signs out in other locations and found that has increased somewhat, driver awareness and safety. So when you're coming through here and pedestrians when they look at these stop signs, they have a belief that because there's a stop sign, cars are going to stop. But if you put a stop sign in a location where there shouldn't be one,
There's a stop sign right there.
it makes it difficult for drivers. It's driver behavior. The other reason is, if I will, there is not an ADA access from this side of the road here to this side of the road here. It runs into a curb. So this crosswalk would have to be upgraded, and it would have to be moved down away from this radius to make it ADA. We can do it. I'm not saying we can't. We can do it, but it would change the stop signs as it is. So presently, there is no crosswalk here. This has been resurfaced and that crosswalk is actually gone. We will be proposing the stop sign discussion at a later date, but that's part of it. So this ADA ramp would need to be upgraded because it does not meet standards at this current time. And there is not an access on this side of the road, so that would need to be upgraded. It can be an at-grade crossing, very much. It's not, I'm just letting you know. I want it, but cards on the table, it can be an at-grade, but there are many issues that are going on at this crossing. Now, going from here down to where the crosswalk is, it's right, well, it's about 200 feet down the road to this point. And you can see the crossing where it would be on a curve. It raises you up on this curve and it gives you more visibility. So the thought was, see if it comes out. The thought was, as we prepared this and we went through it, and this is the last thing, is we have a neighborhood over here. Yes, 100%. We have a neighborhood to the east, northeast, up in this area of the park. And we also have an area to the southwest of the park. And both of those have to cross over Banbury to get to the park. What's the best location? We felt for this, at least for this initial one, keeping the cost, believe it or not, keeping them low, is having it at that location and taking it at that point as a council. Y'all can
Let me ask you a question.
go from there as discussions.
Ellen, I'd love your
Yeah.
input on this. So let's say they kept the design, let's say they kept it as is.
Mhm,
But up here where you're proposing a crosswalk,
mhm.
let's say that they put in something that was more like striped lines. It wasn't as robust of a crosswalk, but it's at least something to add some safe passage. And it can be upgraded at a later date to something that's a little more robust. Maybe it's a crosswalk sign, maybe it's just painted lines. I'm guessing that's not super expensive. And down the road, if there's more funding, then that can be beefed up too. So you've got what we're trying to achieve here of something that's substantial with lights, potentially both locations down the road.
Yes, Councilmember Holton has hit the nail on the head. I'm really in favor of, yes, trying to get a foundational standard, but the ability to phase things in, to your point. We can say, here's what we're gonna do initially, and we will further phase in additional things as either monies allow or come up with something. Again, there is a dip in the road that if cars don't slow down to about 5 or 10 miles an hour, you're gonna wreck the bottom of your car. So I think utilizing the situation that we already have there could be the way. It's just, I'm worried about this blind curve. The blind curve here. And I don't want to find out that a child went ahead and ran across the street and a car coming around here struck a child, because it's almost irresistible. You're trying to get to the park and to walk along, especially to walk out around this cul-de-sac and then walk all the way over here when you're trying to get to playgrounds in that, eastern edge of the park. So I will leave it to the experts, but I'm just wondering if we could get a little more bang for our $80,000 bucks, since we don't have limitless funds in the city.
Chief, has there been any incidents up there that you can recall? Pedestrian
I could
accidents?
research and get you the exact numbers, but off the top of my head, I will tell you that has not been an issue for us. I don't call any.
Again, I think our goal as a council is safe systems for all, which the US Department of Transportation has said, how people perceive danger is real to them. And we don't want to wait, or the undocumented near misses. I feel really strongly that that's how we build something, is through the directions we've been given through safe systems for all and aiming for vision zero instead of taking chances.
So we need to move on. We don't need a decision now, because that decision will come through getting a motion and a second and voting. And that is item 4.4. So item 4.5 is a consideration of resolution 2024-61, approving an interlocal cooperation agreement Salt Lake County for the Help in the Heights Coalition. We've discussed this multiple times. Mike, anything you want to add?
This is just the interlocal agreement that gives us access to the funding. It's up to 3 years of up to $94,500. Plus a potential for an additional matching funding source of $10,000 for every dollar of that we get reimbursed, we have to match our own. So pretty good access to 3 years of funding to hire a health coordinator and begin working to create the ordinance and the membership and everything else.
Multiple variability with the coalition. Yep, great.
Questions? Did you find out if was listed as a half-time or full-time position?
It's part-time, but we can definitely take a look at that, especially during the budgets.
Okay, and then I do want to point out a couple things in the contract. Number one, we're missing exhibit 1 and exhibit 2. So I don't know what those are. Or what they would include. So I feel like I'm voting on something I haven't seen fully. The second thing to point out is in section 12. Probably has to be in here, but there's a non-funding clause which basically says this could come to a halt at any point, even though the intent is not to have that happen. And then I do have a question about section 9, contractor representative. It says the contractor shall designate an employee and make known to the county the name and title of this employee. Are you intending that be the coalition coordinator? Or is that someone else from the city?
As the main point of contact, it would be the coordinator.
Okay. And then in this contract also, it specifies that when notices are sent, we have to say who those notices are sent to. Was there a particular reason it would be to Samantha DeSilhorst instead of to the healthcare coordinator?
We can make that change.
We can change it. Samantha applied for the grant, so that's probably why her name is in there.
I would like to see that change. I think it makes more sense.
Or it can be me as well. Either way.
Okay.
Probably say default to him until we
Yeah,
hire
city
somebody.
manager.
And what does exhibit 1 and exhibit 2 contain that we don't have in our packet?
Activities outlined in exhibit 1. So that would be the grant application. The details that say it's a part-time coordinator. I honestly think it's in the scope of services there, but we can check on that. This was the contract provided by Salt Lake County. So I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Well, a few elements that I have concern over in my conversations with the Salt Lake County Health Department representatives, Julia Glade to be specific. And in my conversations with other cities and how they've handled things, the importance of this coordinator can't be overstated, who is selected for that. And so Julia Glade recommended that selection process is overseen by the Salt Lake County Health staff versus being interviewed and chosen by what we refer to as the contractor, which I would assume would be someone on city staff who is not an expert in the field of health. So for me, I would need to see that's under scope of services. So it's in the agreement number 1A. I would need that to be amended to read, with oversight by Salt Lake County. Because that would be so important that the coordinator, in fact, I'd even like to see it be maybe the city manager, Salt Lake County Health Department, maybe a council member. But just that, we really make sure that this person that is going to guide this process is the right person.
So we do have interviews on Thursday. The county is involved. I'll be in those interviews. I really hesitate to put something like that in the contract because this is a city employee, not a county employee. I want to make sure that we have.
So this person will report to you.
Yes,
And you already have included the county in the interview process.
yes, the county will be in the interview.
Fantastic, because we don't have health and human services expertise.
In fact,
which is
she's
great.
gonna ask the questions to ask and I'll walk us through that process, so. But I really would hesitate to put.
Well, I'd like to see it in this because at this point, it's at your wonderful discretion as our new city manager. But if this may operate into perpetuity, it'll exceed perhaps any of our time in leadership. And I would like to make sure that going out into the future, these monies and this whole process, the decision-making is by professionals. That's why who makes up this coalition, which should lead most of the decision-making with an oversight by the city manager, but I think this structure is very important that we put in place, and again, I would like to see that amended.
We can put something in with the advice of the county. I just would hesitate to give the county authority to hire our employees.
I would not be in favor of that.
No, I
There are
didn't
two
say-
others that would.
No, I said integrally involved, because this says that the contractor, meaning the city, will hire and maintain. And I'm just asking that the hiring process include the, have inclusion of Salt Lake County staff.
This is what I would say. I would give that deference to our city manager to decide what resources he needs to make an appropriate decision. If you feel like you're falling short in some areas of expertise, then there are resources out there. That's other cities, if that's the county, if that's the state. But that's your job to make sure that that's taken care of appropriately. And I don't think that we need to stipulate that in a specific contract.
I don't see any of those resources stepping back and saying, no.
They'd say
You're
yes.
on your own.
you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
they'll all step up.
Great.
No,
I guess I would note also the agreement can be terminated by either party with or without cause on 30 days. Notice if something isn't working right, that would be a way to amend it fairly quickly. So
well, from everything I studied about this, they describe this as a very long-term, there's all these volunteers who get slated onto committees. I mean, this is a very deep and dense coalition potentially. And my concern again is that foundationally, this is very different than the other citizen committees that we have. And I think how we set this up, again, will serve beyond likely any of us. And I don't want to leave it to the potential changes in policy with future personnel.
I think there was a discussion that we had last time that I think comforted a lot of the group here that there are not going to be, or we can put it in the contract, but there aren't, real heavy-handed decisions that are made without the council. I think that was something that was discussed. I think that as long as Jared can use his resources and hire an appropriate person, there's a 30-day out, and that there's a check that the council can act if we feel like they're going down a path that isn't in the best interest of the city. I think those are things we laid out last time. I feel comfortable with.
Yep.
With those things
We're
in
gonna move
place.
on. Yep.
Would you be
Well-
willing to change that contract name though from Samantha to Steelhorse? to
Yes.
I think we just make it.
So,
city manager.
Jared, yeah.
Well, and I
Go ahead,
still,
make that.
I cannot vote in favor of this without seeing exhibit 1, RFA, and exhibit 2.
You have.
The RFA is-
Vote again.
Those were the
that's what
grant
you submitted.
applications.
That's the.
Those are the
request for-
application forms.
Yeah.
And what's the other?
It's the details of the application form. It
Yeah, because
is
none of this.
Community-centered evidence-based coalitions application.
None of this speaks to how the coalition is set up or.
Nor is it intended to. This just gives us the financial resources to begin that process.
Right.
And then we need to decide, and as long as the council has some ability to take some part. I'm good.
Okay, we're moving on. So we're gonna move on to item 4, staff reports, which is, we're gonna start with item A, which is a continued discussion of WFRC project discussion timelines. So Matt, we're gonna turn it back to you.
Okay, I'll make my part here really brief. This is kind of the next step. We talked about it last time. I've sent out an email to each one of you that listed the projects that y'all had sent to me, so that the council could have that for review and come back today for discussion to deliberate on projects that you as a council, with a majority consent, can decide that you would like staff to apply for with the letters of intent. After this meeting, we have one more meeting next Tuesday. Since we're back to back, we'll have one more meeting where I will need from the council the final decision on which projects we would like to have submitted for the letters of intent. Today's discussion is for the council to talk about those projects that they might want to do, and I'm here to take notes and do all of that. I presented in the August 20th meeting, 3 projects that were some ideas. Once again, please do not take my ideas as gospel. It was just out there. It was part of some of our existing plans and adding on to them. But now it's back to you as a council mayor for that deliberation and discussion. And I will be here taking notes, and I will answer what questions I can answer for you.
Do we have those that we can pull up again, Matt?
I'll pull up my email. Sorry, I should have had this ready to go.
No, no. worries.
It's the same one that's in the packet, right?
It should be what's in the packet, yes, but I'll finding my council. Do you have a date on that email that was in the packet?
September 3rd is what it says.
September 3rd? That's right, I sent it out on the 3rd. I should have remembered that, right?
I could start talking.
Okay,
about-
yeah, I'll pull it up right now. So yes, so please go ahead. I'll pull it up as we're.
Well, we know we have a problem at Highway Drive
Yeah.
and Fort Union, and you heard me advocate earlier that the main problem, I observed it again, I've been very conscientious about, driving that often. There's someone turning left out of the Chevron. I cannot believe they turned left out of the Chevron. And so I think that the concrete barrier is a good start as a demonstration project to see what it does to get traffic through that intersection. I'm always a little bit concerned about we have to condemn property to expand it to 3 lanes. It seems prudent to me cost wise.
We
And,
don't have to start with condemning property. It would be property acquisition.
and if you don't acquire it,
We would, I don't think we would condemn it. If we don't have a willing seller, then we probably wouldn't move forward.
okay, how do you feel about starting with a demonstration project, at least with that median to
I
mitigate
I
that
think
traffic?
for me,
That's not the issue to me at all. I know it is to you.
Because I observe it all the time.
And so do I, because I go to McDonald's a lot, so I do too, but it's.
he does turn left too. Is what he just said. Second.
I'm strict with that from the record, I do not. So, but I watched the traffic get backed up on a Saturday, all the way up to Bengal. Because everybody's trying to get into that right lane sooner than later, because then they don't have to worry about getting up. Now that there's 2 lanes to get onto the freeway, 2 lanes would make traffic get down to Highland in such a more orderly
So
manner.
Mayor, if I can, so I
Yes.
drive downtown every day.
Yeah.
Go through that area. Super interesting because you can see which minivans behind me, their kids are late. And like there's kids getting ready in the back of the van, you can just see it all. And a couple things are happening. One, because it's so backed up, you're getting people that are taking, you stay in the right lane, like almost not quite to Starbucks, but it gets pretty close to where there's a painted arrow that says you need to merge.
Yeah.
People are definitely pushing the limit on that. And the other thing that you're seeing is they're just turning right at the light where the credit union is, and they're going through the neighborhood. And there are a ton of cars that are saying, forget this. They're going through the neighborhood. Then they're across the street from Dan's. And then they're turning left, going past all lanes to get in the right turn lane.
You're talking, they're going east on 7200
Yes.
and then.
And then they're taking the
skirting
immediate
intersection.
left, going all the way down, cruising down. And then they are going from that stop and they're going across all lanes to get in the right turn lane to get onto the
Yeah,
freeway.
I don't want to incentivize traffic through neighborhoods ever.
And so
But could
I
we
don't know
do-
how we do it, but I would love to at least explore so I can make an educated decision on what would it look like to add a legitimate lane to hope to,
There was
Ease some of that-
always
some of that
there,
issue.
and there's 3 lanes across.
it sounds
the
like it
street,
was there
and
right
there's
until they
three-
did a double turn.
Yeah,
double
we
left.
lost the lane when we got the project to do double left turn lanes at the 4
Mhm.
corners. And they couldn't make it work with 3 lanes, so they got,
Yeah, I
they narrowed it
remember
down.
that, Yeah.
So that's the only reason that we lost it in the beginning, and anyway. So
Can
this,
you consider the concrete barrier in addition?
yeah.
I think you should- I think you need to do it
I 100%.
regardless.
Oh, thank you.
I think you
Yes.
need that should, it should
100%.
be all one project, in my opinion.
Well,
Matt, how would that be engineered?
As far as the barrier and the
Barrier,
lanes. Excuse me, for Highland Drive specifically, if we were to add a lane, if you will, we don't have a large, I mean, if you go back on south on Highland Drive to where it merges.
There's room.
There's a lot of room there. Till it narrows down. So it goes a longer way than you think. The stripes aren't there because they're not supposed to be on a lane change like that. So the lane
Maybe about
itself.
Starbucks down.
Yeah, down
ish.
by Starbucks-ish and then cross the street
Zions.
and check city
Mhm.
across the street. So those are 2 of the real tough ones to deal with if, no, once again, things are possible and we can do the property acquisition, because right now there's the application's out for property
There's room
acquisition.
for it.
There's actually,
There-
yes, so
yeah,
it's, man, I think you're only
Corridor
talking about
preservation, thanks, I keep missing
So
that
it's a
name,
really small area. Corridor preservation is the
funds to
public
buy
works
the lands. yes.
county group, yeah.
Right.
That's right.
So we could do that. Now, also, one of the other things, this would also, if you'll recall, on the east side of Highland, from Bengal all the way down to Fort Union, we have a project starting in 2 years for these 10-foot bicycle path pedestrian trail.
On the east
So-
side?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh.
and
Oh,
so
yeah,
we
where all
could,
those
in
big
theory,
barriers are.
Mhm.
do something in conjunction with, because we already will be needing to purchase property for the trail system itself.
And would you lose the right-hand lane? The dedicated right?
No, I'd ask
It would be we could.
I want it saved.
Matt can figure it
Yes.
out.
Well,
Look at
we just have to buy Zion, we just have to buy Zion's Bank, we'll be fine, just a piece of Zion's Bank.
That-
Yeah.
I understand, I mean, I'm just trying to make the most of our dollars and asking a lot of questions in that.
No, I agree.
And also.
Great question.
If I can, while we're on this, I know the public's looking at that, especially around McDonald's, all that, there is a big wide open space of asphalt that seems like you can just drop
Yes.
anything, a 747 in there.
Yes,
The problem
Major
is
problem.
across the street and the barrier that's there.
yes.
You cannot go through an intersection and make that much of a change of an angle. So there is. If we add it, there's some things to work with. So if you would like that, and part of this project would be the barrier where we bring all of that road up to code, and our code actually, I think we're supposed to go back 250 to 300 feet. Right in, right out at
Right,
major
those
intersections.
lefts and
So you're
now
saying
start
there's a
out the same.
chance.
Well,
That's the fact, that, I'm just laying out to answer the question.
I feel like it's,
Thrown out.
it's something that there are all these projects in our own districts, you know, that kind of impact this little neighborhood and this neighborhood. Like this is one of those projects that's really impacts a large portion of Cottonwood Heights. That I feel like it should be at least
Can't stand.
a priority.
Well, that's why I want the most bang for our buck, because if we spend so much money in this area, then we don't get the other important smaller projects.
Well, and I would like to have a turn here. I would like to read into the record from the Subcommittee on Active Transportation. Their comment is increasing traffic lanes will induce further demand for drivers, and by the time the lane is finished, it won't relieve traffic in the way we hope. How does this fit into the master plan and the sustainability goals of our community, including promoting multimodal transportation? We have discussed how Cottonwood Heights is already built out and we've made modifications, but this is a prime example of a place to add a buffered space for all users with a landscape median separating the road from the other users.
Okay, great. So, what do you need from us, Matt? Is this, so do we, you want to?
This is, today honestly is discussions and if, however you'd like to do it, Mayor, we're slated for next week to have another discussion, but.
Make a quick comment. We don't need to get into the details on each one of these. I think we just need direction to whether or not we want to put in a letter of intent to look at these projects. So great input, so we know what we're actually putting into the letter of intent, but I think we don't need to get into the details. We won't be in design until and unless we're funded.
Correct.
But it'll be next week's council meeting when we choose.
Right,
Three.
so, I mean, if you can do it here, that's great too,
So
but
we're good with the letter of intent on
We need to-
Highland, right?
I am.
I
Yeah, okay.
oppose the Highland Drive project. I
So we've got
support,
one
I
letter of
support the medians. I think that's very important. I support the building of medians to stop those left-hand turners. But I do not support the widening of Highland Drive with additional vehicular lanes.
Mayor, if I may, I hear the number 3 being thrown out. And I think that's related to, because I just posed 3 items. That's not the all number. I mean, we can submit however many you would like to submit. Okay, but I try to keep it between 3 and 5 because this takes quite a bit of time for my staff to put these together, but we can do as many as you'd like.
Don't we need, if I may ask a clarifying question, don't we need to know of the different grants that are available, CMAQ, et cetera, which of those grants aligns with the type of project being forwarded? Because we obviously can't say 2 projects for CMAQ. We need to say, this is the CMAQ project we want, or this is.
Yes and no. We will categorize them, like, for instance, this one is an STP project. It's the major project. It's the one with the biggest money. These are the big projects. We'll categorize it. We can submit 2 STP. We can submit 3. We can submit CMAQ. We can do oh my gosh, my brain is slipping. The trail.
I'm gonna give you a Snickers.
The tap. Thank you, Mike. I just got Mike. He's gonna keep whispering in my ear.
We got acronyms.
We got acronyms galore. We can submit that. Now tap is the lower end one, right? Not lower end, but it's the less money. Smaller projects think that way, but we can do that. I'm just saying, please don't keep 3 as the number in your head, that's the locked in number. But yes, to answer your question, we'll categorize them, we'll submit them, but also in discussions between now and the final, when we submit in December, Wasatch Front will also shuffle those to our best position. So we've turned in some and they've turned around and said, you have a better chance in this one. Do you mind categorizing it there? And we say, great. And we've ended up getting them. So.
Well, I'd also like to know what my council colleagues are interested in promoting other than the additional vehicular lane for Highland Drive.
For me, the other one would be that crossing at Mountain View that we talked about last meeting. It's a super heavy traffic area. If you look at all your traffic studies that we've done at Fort Union Boulevard, west of Highland Drive, the numbers are significantly larger in number. Chief, you can probably speak to, we always look at the maps in the areas. There's a lot going on down there. That's another one I'd be in favor of making.
So wait,
sure
which
people
one?
cross.
I don't remember this one. Where is
This
it?
was right here. This was one
Oh, the
proposed
bicycle track.
across from Mount View Park, moving the flashing crosswalk to the west and making it a hawk signal
Oh, got it.
and extending the cycle track further
Yeah.
west.
And just for your consideration, a couple things. One, to your point, it's only by the grace of God that we don't have more people hit by the Mountain View Park, and, people send their kids out and, unaccompanied, and they cross that street, and I don't know how we're not getting more fatalities.
You ever played Frogger?
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's what it is.
And I would also tell you that.
So what are other
Highland Drive
ideas?
should be on your radar, because we get more.
Yeah, what are
accidents
other
than anywhere
ideas
else.
that we could do, Matt, there to make that safer?
Well, one is improving the crossing. 2
Okay.
is it's, once again, the traffic calming. Do we put islands out in the middle? But Fort Union, I won't say the problem, but Fort Union has no shoulders. So that really limits us on a lot of things. And it's got drives all over. There's not, it was built without controlled access, so medians on those are very difficult to do. But not impossible. You just kind of make everybody ride in, ride out, and you make places for U-turns and things like that. But
So I have a request. So I think we're all in favor of moving the crosswalk. I would love to task you with coming up with some solution to calm traffic at that crossing.
at the park,
Yes, whether it's a median, whatever it is, you come up with something. I know you're brilliant. Come up with something that we could approve, hopefully even fast track and make that a safer area to cross.
There's a lot that we have talked about of what we want to do on Fort Union Boulevard. I think trying to make, you know, that go hop and do some, whatever the mayor's talking about is probably more of an immediate thing that's more tangible than the long-term goals. So.
Is everybody okay with that?
No, yeah.
I am.
Yeah, it's great. It's an important project. I'd be interested in getting some feedback. There's apparently two council members came forward wanting to see revisions to Bengal Boulevard. And now, I believe we're talking about to the east of 2700 East. So east of the project that was put forward in SS4A that was declined. The 0.4 miles from that gas station convenience store on the north side of Bengal and approximately 2700 East going eastward. There's a curve there. It's 30 miles an hour and there's no sidewalk. So I think of this as somewhat of a socioeconomic. It's an area where the homes on the north side of Bengal within that region don't have as high a marketplace as the other places that we've done continuous sidewalk. And though it's not in my district, I feel strongly that this is where this is where we have our schools, our rec center, our convenience store. You know, there's middle school, high school. So does anybody have an appetite to support the idea of submitting something related to that section?
Is
of
it
Bengal
just around the
Boulevard?
turn that doesn't have the sidewalk?
It goes all the way. It's a 0.4 mile. It's nearly half
0.4
mile.
without sidewalk.
It goes to,
And not much shoulder either.
So that's a regional type road, so there's gotta be grants for a sidewalk on that road, right, Matt?
the Bengal Boulevard itself is not on the, this
It's not on the
section of
RTP.
Bengal is not on the
RTP.
long range. But that doesn't mean we cannot apply, okay, that we can still do it. It's just, it's not on the long range. It's a higher hurdle to jump, but we can do it. And this is a great project. It always has been. I think it's Pamela Drive right here is where the sidewalk ends. It's
Yes.
on the, I don't
yeah,
have
I
it
think
sharing
it's in
my
that,
screen.
isn't it?
I'm sitting here waving like you guys
Oh,
are
we knew
looking
what you
at
were
it.
talking about.
Sorry.
I looked, I'm like, who's Pamela?
Yeah, Pamela's right there sitting out in the audience here. So here we go. So Pamela Drive right here is where it ends. The sidewalk ends. And so this whole thing, and if you'll recall, going down along this, there's a very deep, my guess it was some point it was an old irrigation ditch. There's no curb and gutter. So it is deep and it is dangerous for bicyclists and pedestrians alike. One, pedestrians, they're out in the road, but two, the bicyclists. And as you come around this corner, there's a modification till the water dumps into to an open system. So there is a lot of room for improvement through here. I would agree. I think it's a great project for a cycle track. We have room in here to work. We have a lot of space. This is one of those, can be yes.
What grant would we apply for
This one would probably be under an STP because it is a fairly large one. But once again, it could fall under the TAP if we focus only on the cycle track, sidewalk, curb and gutter. It could be a smaller and we could stretch those dollars. But as I said, when we write the intent up, we'll sit down with Wasatch and they're very good about helping us understand the best location.
Another thing to consider is there's not a lot of driveways in this section.
Right.
There's none at all here. I
Right.
think the first driveway is here. So in terms of I know there was a concern, how is this gonna hamper these, residents' ability to park along here? But there's so few houses, and the houses that do have driveways here, they have long driveways. So the need to really do on-street parking on the north side of the road here, is almost seemingly non-existent.
Well, that puts some effort in. I think the tap, if WPRC agrees, but I think that would be preferable.
It's like most of it.
Yeah,
Most
that's
of them are
why- that's why
backyard.
it's
It's almost
so-
all
They're
backyards.
backyard.
Those are backyards.
Yeah.
What
very
about
little
any traffic
access there.
calming there? Is there any need to include that? And just to kind of, especially because that's a blind curve.
So I think that's.
That would be,
works.
those would be things such as the raised medians. We could do things of that nature. We can narrow some of the street up, utilize some of the asphalt for existing asphalt. We will have to add some asphalt for the curb and gutter, but yeah, there's some things we can do. I mean, once again, this is a letter of intent. This is where we're gonna try to go from point A to point B. We're gonna throw an estimate at it, square footage wise. It's really not even a swag. It's a wag. And we'll throw a number at it.
I'll be sorry.
Sorry, I don't wanna say it.
Some
I
sort
don't
of
want
wild guess.
Sorry.
the scientific wild,
But
yes.
I do.
No, sorry. Yeah, don't Google it.
Generally in agreement that this is our pedestrian bicycle corridor for sure, because of the schools and the rec center,
Yeah.
and that we need to invest in this.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Okay,
and
Those are
if
the
time
three.
permits, I'd also like to get some feedback on this strip of Danish Road. There's two very small sections that only affect a total of about 8 or 9 residents in terms of their properties along Danish. But what all the residents that I've talked to in my district here have all said, we want vehicles to drive 25 miles an hour. So I'm very interested to know in this descriptive, whether the council has an interest in seeing the preservation of the Danish Road, south of Creek Road to Alta Hills, to remain narrow and slow going, to keep the charm of the treed canopies that go over parts of that street, and come up with what our public works director calls a monolith. I guess it's
monolithic.
a monolithic sidewalk, which he said likely would have a greater appeal for a grant than just a continuation of the standard 4-foot sidewalks. Can you help describe this maybe to the council, if you would?
Yeah. So the question that was raised on Danish Road in the RTP does have on it a cycle track as long range. Yeah, there is on there. So if we were to
That's gonna require widening, right?
it could, and that's the point I think Councilmember Burrell is making. If we utilize as much as we can, when we say cycle track though, they're thinking 10 feet. So we can do monolithic and start building this cycle track, if you will, the multi-use trail. Let's look at it that way. It is on the RTP, the long range plan, but it would, they won't build neighborhood sidewalks, if you will.
Yeah.
They'll build trails that are interconnecting. And that's what I think Councilmember Burrell is trying to say. We don't put a park strip, a 5-foot strip, and then a 10-foot trail. Are you willing, or is the council willing and the residents willing to get a 10-foot trail, but have it next to the curb and gutter, as opposed to having a buffer between them? And that's the question, I think. Does that answer? It's a monolithic trail.
I would love to individually meet each of you over there and walk it, because I'm quite sure, I've talked to Gail Conger already, I've talked to almost all the affected residents, and they understand that their neighbors and friends want continuous sidewalk. And they're more than willing to meet with the city and do the things that make sense. So I'm interested in seeing whether the council has an interest in finally, after decades of requests from the residents of that area, come up with something. Maybe we don't see it precisely at this moment, but from everything that, you know, Matt Shipp has shared about what might have a greater appetite by the WFRC, although we may find that it would not be tremendously expensive to create this with some other kind of funding than to try to go through a grant program.
So if the city funds it, it's a retreat item to talk about. If there's a grant, I don't have any problem applying for a grant for a trail there, if the residents would be okay with that. Do you want to maybe quickly address our little pilot on the Danish? Or no?
Say that, I'm sorry,
Our
Mayor.
little pilot that we talked about?
Yeah.
Bus removable speed bump?
Oh, yes, sorry, Mayor. I was thinking airplanes. I'm like, it's not that wide. We can't, you were leading me.
I wanted to give you the credit to tell them what we're gonna do there.
Mayor and council, one of the things that we are doing, as you know, we already have on the road, we have the interactive speed limit signs that records all of the speeds on that road, volumes of traffic. We can get it down to the minute of speeds, cars and things of that nature. We have 4 sets, I believe, no, two large sets of temporary speed tables. They're supposed to be in this month, that we would like to install before winter hits, because we'll have to pull them out because they're temporary, but put them in before that and run the data before and after to verify, you know, just to give some before and after numbers on speeds and how those speed tables do affect those numbers. So that's what the mayor was tossing out to me, a lifeline, and I missed it.
Could you describe, are we talking about the temporary speed bumps that instead of going all the way across the width of the road, they are put where private vehicular tires would go? That's kind of what
No, it's it's more of a speed table. It'll go all the way across the road. It's like the ones north on Danish Road that are north of Creek Road, those same size.
Those are not temporary.
No, but it's the same size.
Well, why is there a reason not to consider the smaller ones, which again are disruptive to motor vehicles, but not to cyclists?
Putting them in between.
So not going all the way across, but the problem is cars.
Yeah, cars
Or
will
to the
go,
side.
or they
Well, then we
will
give them
tend
a
to.
ticket for that. They will
Well,
break the law.
I can't regulate that.
No, I mean, I'm just not in favor of those speed bumps that go all the way across the roadway. I mean.
Well, you just remember, it's a test pilot to see if it does in fact slow cars down. And we'll have real-time data to compare before and after. And if it is something we want to pursue, then we can in fact discuss permanent design, which can take into bicycling into account. But the small speed bumps that you see in parking lots, you cannot put in a street. Those are a big no-no because they're small, they're hard to see, and if you hit those, it
Well,
does.
that's why you have a sign on the side of the road.
I
that
understand,
says
but
speed bump.
they have been shown, and I believe, I'll have to look it up, but
You
they
see
are.
them in other cities. I don't know that they're against the law.
I won't say they're against the law, but they cause major
Good, we
damage.
want that
so-
damage on those cars.
Well, I won't say that out loud,
Did I say that into the microphone?
so.
There's a little liability.
No.
That's exactly what happens.
Whatever we do not want to make Danish Road an
So-
alternate route for Wasatch Boulevard backed up ski traffic. So I'm
Just-
100% in favor of keeping it very small, narrow,
Yeah.
and not
Okay,
enough.
I think I have an idea. of what we
Do
want.
we need to talk about 23rd? Have we talked about 23rd?
That's
Is that on the list?
A long time ago. It's not on this list.
23rd has been
It's
on
already been on.
in and
Already
out.
Approved.
Is that already approved for a sidewalk?
No,
No.
no. We have not, we
But
have,
we've approved it to get to the intent stage.
if you'd like to do that today, we can. We've not approved that to go. We've talked about it, but we've never made application on it.
Is that considered,
Yeah.
shovel ready? The
Uh,
sidewalk plan for 2300 East?
Shovel ready describes plans designed and property purchased,
Okay.
and we don't have that.
Okay, got
Okay. Yeah, I think we're for.
2300
Yep.
sidewalk, okay.
Forget about me now, man.
Who can forget you?
Would it be helpful if Matt sends out the list of the projects and
Yeah, I'm
you all rank rank them? So then maybe we can compile those and help, just,
Ranked choice voting?
no, not saying anything about that. Matt and I already had a discussion about that.
It would be helpful to have a summary of, yes.
But,
That'd be great, that'd be
and then maybe next week that'll help us kind of compile those and see which order, because I want to also respect the time of public works staff, and if we can't get to them all.
But you need a notice of intent before today, right?
No.
No,
No, no,
after
no.
next
The,
week.
the letter of intent is the last,
Yeah.
you'll finalize your list. Between now and then, I'll try to compile our thoughts so far and send it back to you and we can have that discussion next week. So
I'm just
these
asking
are the,
if
yeah.
maybe we can rank, if you want to go through and rank them as your priority, so then we can compile that, so that if staff runs out of time or we don't have enough resources to put the full list together, we can apply for the ones we think have the most chance and are the most.
Should we do that next week then?
Yeah, so we'll send out a kind of a summary.
Will you help us know what has the most chance of being
I'm not
funded?
sure.
They'll
work
know,
on
but they can give us some recommendations.
Yeah, we can give you some
Things like that.
recommendations
Give us, you know,
based on previous approvals through this process.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, you good? You got enough?
Any others?
Mayor, however you'd like to go.
Yeah.
I've got 4 things. And my computer just went bye-bye. So I've got 4 things written down so far that, and then I also have the items we haven't still on the list that we need to come back to if, you know, as the council and mayor, you would like to. So this is your discussion. I'm just here for the ride.
Great. If I don't see any other council members that want to address anything else, we'll move on. So item B under staff reports is a sustainability update. And we have Mike, I don't know if you're gonna lead this, or is Ian Harris is our associate planner, sustainability analyst. Thanks for coming, Ian. I don't know who wants to lead the discussion.
I'll
You
do
wanna
a
start?
1-minute intro. Ian is here. We're just gonna provide the council with an update on
I don't,
kind of the last year and a half of sustainability projects based on previous council direction, budget allocations for sustainability related projects. And then, you know, one of those was the direction to move forward with some sustainability related ordinances as it pertains to electric vehicle parking and bicycle parking. So we have some rough framework to present to the council for feedback before we actually prepare a draft, but we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'll just jump right in. If you have any questions at any point, just stop me. So like Mike said, just giving some updates on sustainability projects that we've done since I've last seen you, and then EV bike parking standards, just having a discussion with you about what direction we want to head to on that before we begin drafting. So just an update on some projects that we've completed and are working on this year. Our sapling sale, where we bought a bunch of trees to sell to residents at a wholesale discount and then use some of that money to fund planting trees in our own parks. That went fairly well. That was held earlier this year in April. We sold over 100 trees to residents, and then the ones that were remaining, we planted in city parks and donated some to Canyon School District schools for their use on their school properties. This project will contribute pretty greatly to our ability to obtain Tree City status this year, which I know has been kind of a long held target of the city. I'm pretty confident that we'll meet the criteria this year. I haven't crunched the numbers quite yet, but I'll make sure that application is complete and turned into the Arbor Day Foundation so that we can get that.
The staff did a lot for that sapling sale. Thank you. Do you feel like it was worth your time to have it for 2 days, or would you consolidate it to one?
I think something we learned is that almost everybody came within the first few hours. And so I think it would help us to kind of condense that quite a bit. And one of the ideas we've talked about is maybe doing some kind of pre-order system so that people can just come and collect. So that's something that we've discussed, kind of shortening
Paying
that.
attention to staff time.
Yeah. The second day, there were people, it was slower for sure. And that was a Sunday, which is to be expected, but you know, we are taking that into account if we do this again.
Thank you for that.
First event, so we definitely learned a lot from it, but these are some trees that we were able to plant in city parks as a result of that event. So on the left, that's Ferguson Park, kind of along that frontage with Wasatch Boulevard. It's pretty loud there along the path, and so we're hoping that those junipers that were planted are going to be able to grow and provide some buffer from that highway. And then on the right side is Ridgecrest Elementary. I don't remember if it was Canyons who did it or if it was our park staff, but they planted some trees that should grow fairly fairly tall and wide to shade that sidewalk where a bunch of kids will congregate or walk to and from school.
I was gonna mention the pre-order is a pretty good idea.
Mhm.
Where I grew up in Southern California, residents could order trees. The city provided them for free, but they could order them ahead of time. We don't wanna do that. But they were allowed to order the trees and, you know, my parents were the recipient of that for a number of trees. But the pre-order allows people to know what's coming, prepare their space and be willing to come and just pick it up and go.
Yeah, I think we've got a system where we can do that, so we'll look into that this year for sure when we do it, hopefully next spring. So I'll move on to a couple of the other projects that we've completed. The Mount View Park Pollinator Garden, if any of you have been out there to see it, we worked with Mott's Landscaping using the funding that the council provided in 2023 to complete some extensive weeding, mulching, and planting on that park. Right now, we're currently working with Voda Landscaping on some signage for those pollinator plants and assessing future steps, and we'll come to the council if there's any opportunities to further the phasing of the work on that property. Some pictures from that park. It's looking pretty good. These were taken a few weeks ago. On the left, you can see there's quite a bit of mulching and some new pollinator plants that have been laid down. On the right, there's some pollinator plants as well. They're a little bigger. You can see the mulching. There's still some work that we could do. It didn't cover the entire park, so that could be a step.
Will there eventually be pathways through this?
I think they exist right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so this is kind of the central area where all the pathways kind of lead to.
Oh, great.
They cleaned it up fairly nicely. This area had a lot of weeds. So it's really improved and the work that they've done has gone a long way to making that area a much better space. So
We'll just note real quick on that one, the Arts Council kind of oversaw the repainting of the mural there within the park, and it's pollinator themed. And this whole kind of pollinator garden idea really took hold based on a recommendation from the Parks, Trails and Open Space Committee. So I want to give all the different city committees credit for coming up with these project ideas and, you know, just being able to collaboratively execute on these. It's cool to see it done.
Yeah, it's awesome. So just a couple of other things, for sustainability communications, there's quite a bit under this umbrella, but we've coordinated with our communications person, Beatrice, to get some monthly newsletter articles about sustainability topics in the newsletter. And there's just been a lot of initiatives and programs and events that we've worked with them to promote those, both in and out of the city. So that's been something that we've invested quite a bit. Right now, we're still working to improve some of our handouts that we give residents, especially with landscaping. We're kind of working on the website right now. We've beefed up a lot of the info that's on there, but we'd like to reorganize it to a more user-friendly format. And then we're also working on hosting a sustainability seminar series at City Hall. Councilmember Burrell hosted an event earlier this summer that was awesome, focusing on the water cycle. There's a few other topics that we'd like to get to in the coming months. So that's upcoming, and if there's any opportunities for any council member to participate, we'd love that. So that's been great. And then the Hard to Recycle event, I won't go into that very much. We heard from URA earlier tonight on that, so that was an awesome event that they held.
Regarding the sustainability communications with the block, I don't know if you're calling it a block party that's coming up at the end of this month. But are you open to some ideas and suggestions for that event that pertain to sustainability and some of our current initiatives that we have for that event?
I think that's kind of under Mike's.
I think that'd be
umbrella.
great. Yeah, we're in the process of trying to program that whole event, and we have a lot of space. So if there are any ideas for vendors.
I can report from the Parks, Trails and Open Space Committee. I think they were quite receptive to the idea of having people invited to come along Promenade, both from Promenade on the north side of Fort Union Boulevard and from Promenade on the south side of Fort Union Boulevard, and, you know, come toward the block party, maybe even work with the police department to stop traffic or slow traffic for people to get across at the location there where Promenade crosses Fort Union. I'd love to talk to you more. I think that there's people on PTOS. I mean, obviously, Mike Johnson and I sit in on their meetings, and that's something I know time is of the essence. We're coming toward late September, so
Sure.
I'd love to offer to advance that.
Okay, yeah.
One more event I just want to touch on that I just remembered, Ian. We contribute every year to a rain barrel sale. It's hosted by the Utah Rivers Council. So we go and volunteer to help. It's their event, we help, and then as a city, we subsidize the purchase of, I think we usually pitch in a couple $1,000s that help further discount the rain barrels for city residents. And we've seen a lot of, this is like the third or fourth year we've participated in that, and that's always a really
Yeah.
popular event that we help out with.
That's been another area where, working with Beatrice, our communications person, has been great, because there's so many different avenues to promote things, and oftentimes we're not aware of that. So that's been something this year that I think we did fairly well, and we sold quite a few barrels, so that was awesome.
These are, do they, you know, I have a water storage barrel. Is that what it is?
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
it's a rain
It
barrel.
comes off your gutter from your roof and comes into the rain barrel.
Usually use it for your garden or your
Yeah,
flower
you
beds.
can irrigate your
It's
yard with
considered
the
gray
Your
water.
rainwater.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, you're not really drinking water.
Shouldn't be.
Please don't.
Well, when water gets caffeine, I'll drink water.
Yeah.
It's
fair.
So several years ago, the state actually had laws regarding not collecting rainwater
Mhm.
because they wanted to go into the groundwater, so they changed the
Right.
laws a few years ago.
I think if you have more than one barrel, you need to like register it with the
Yeah, there's
state.
something.
Yeah, there's something there, but it should be fine. Just don't drink it. So I'm gonna move on to the EV charging and bike parking component of this. So we're in a fairly early stage with this research. So we don't have any draft to share with you tonight. We just have some potential standards that we want to bring to your attention and kind of see if you have any initial thoughts. So I'll just give some background on where this came from. In 2023, we got direction from City Council to draft and research EV ready and bike parking ordinances for new developments. After we started to do some research, we got a notification from Utah Clean Energy, who's a great nonprofit in the area with a lot of experts in this field, that they would be applying for a grant to assist in researching and drafting EV ordinances with a small cohort of other Utah counties and cities that are listed there. So we kind of put our operations on hold and thought it would probably be a great opportunity to work with them, and they're the experts and they know what they're recommending. And once they got that funding, we started working with them earlier this year. There's a few other cities, both in Utah and around the West, that have adopted similar requirements that are kind of similar in geography or demography to us in Cottonwood Heights. So I just wanted to list that there to show that it's kind of a trend that's that cities are going into. Just some research that I'll just breeze through. I won't go too in depth on this, but we all know that EVs are getting more and more common. We see them everywhere. We see charging stations everywhere. Just in the past 2 years, this graph is just showing that EV sales as a share of car sales as a whole have almost doubled. So you can imagine in the next 2, 5, 10 years, that's only going to go even higher. It looks like as of 2023, third quarter, they're at almost 10% of total car shares, which is that figure surprised me. And then as far as like installing EV charging equipment, these are some graphs that were sent to me by Utah Clean Energy that just show the cost savings that you can have when you construct parking stalls to be EV ready. That's just to have circuitry wired to them, not to actually have the charging equipment installed, but to be ready to get that circuitry when they want to install it. You can save anywhere between like 5 to 10 times the cost of the cost that it would be to install that EV equipment there. If you make a stall ready for the equipment rather than trying to wire it with that. And I'm just going to note that our own parking stalls here at City Council, they were made EV ready when we constructed the City Hall. So when we went in after the fact to install those chargers, we saved a lot of money, basically. And then just really quickly, there's 3 different types of EV charging stations. Level 1 is just a basic 120-volt outlet. Level 2 is kind of a sweet spot where you get somewhat fast charging, and it's not too costly. It's basically just like I think like a stove or a dryer outlet, a 240-volt outlet. And then level 3 or DC fast charging is where you get those like superchargers, the ones that cost money. Those can charge really quickly from 0 to 90% within the span of like 30 minutes, but they can be quite expensive. So with some of these standards, we're proposing that we focus on a level 2 EV ready requirement rather than a level 1 or level 3. So you might see that wording. That's kind of what that means. So I want to go into some of the potential standards that we could look at adopting in our code. So for multifamily, that would be 30% of required stalls in multifamily developments must be level 2 EV ready. So again, that's just having the wiring and the circuitry, not the actual charging equipment. That would be up to the property owner to install that if their residents would demand it or they want it. And that would only apply to multiple family dwelling units, which is 3 or more units in our code. For single family and 2-family, the potential standard we could look at is requiring a 240-volt outlet in private garages. We kind of need to look at state code to make sure that we can do this. But we've seen some language in ordinances in other cities in Utah that do require EV readiness in private garages. So we think this might be a good opportunity to adopt that into our code, but we can research that further to make sure we can do that. And that would only apply to single family homes and duplexes with private garages. So that's a standard we could look at for residential charging. And then for commercial EV charging, the recommendation from Utah Clean Energy was 20% of required stalls be made level 2 EV ready in new commercial developments, with 5% having a level 2 charging station installed. So it's not a very high ratio, but it should be enough to accommodate someone that needs charged. And then for hotels and motels, because of the nature of people that use those businesses staying overnight, the recommendation was to require 25% of EV stalls being made level 2 EV ready, and then just the same 5% requirement for having the actual chargers installed there.
When you say level 2 EV ready, you just mean the opportunity for installation.
The capacity.
That they built all the infrastructure aside from the charging actual module that's installed.
That's right. Yeah.
So it would have the electrical outlet.
Yeah. Wired up to
Just,
the.
just to be clear, you're saying here though that for standard commercial, for the other ones, they need to be EV ready, but you're saying for standard commercial and hotels and motels that they must install a certain percentage.
The recommendation was to require that they and make at least 5% of their stalls actually have a charger.
So I can see some value in a developer deciding to do that to maybe attract more people, but that's not free market. That I would probably have a really hard time requiring it. Anybody that wanted to do it, a hotel that wanted to do it, would do it with the fact that, hey, we're going to attract people with electric vehicles staying there, and it makes sense. But I don't think there's any way in the world I would be in favor of requiring that as a
installation
in ordinance.
Okay, installation, not EV readiness.
All of it or just
Yeah.
the actual?
I mean, I'd have to spend more time thinking about it, but I just, there's value. I get it.
Would you be interested, Mayor, in knowing what already is the current standard? Like what are hotels already doing now? Are they pretty much doing this? Or is this unusual?
Standard.
I know, I'm not asking about an ordinance
what the
standard.
market
I'm
is doing?
asking what the market is
What
currently
is the
using.
market doing?
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like the research that we've seen from Utah Clean Energy is that this is where the market is heading. But most cities are, not most, but there's a cohort of cities we're working with to adopt these standards or at least draft
A
some
lot that you're
potential
seeing, Ellen,
ordinances.
is you're seeing a lot of these, especially along the freeway, you're seeing a lot of hotels where Tesla's coming in and they're actually leasing land from them to put these superchargers in place. And you're seeing a lot of, I mean, it's kind of up in flux, but you're seeing a lot of these other electric vehicle manufacturers that are making their cars available to be charged on Tesla infrastructure. And so, what they're doing at like a hotel right by Target and Home Depot, I think that's tougher than if it's someone that's looking for a hotel. I would say that the one, I'm guessing, does the Courtyard have EV charging? I bet it does.
I'm not aware. I haven't been there to look.
It's a good question.
I would think kind of at the mouth, like, I mean, it would kind of make sense too, but I don't know.
I mean, I think that it could be a real marketing boom for our city to be known as a place that is sustainable, that we have ordinances that guide the businesses that come here in this direction. I think that could be very desirable, that could make Cottonwood Heights a place that people want to patronize and come to because they feel good about coming to a place. So I perhaps don't see it quite the way the mayor does. I think public policy can matter, and it can be a very positive message and attract actually higher end hotels, higher end guests to come our way because they see us as a city who truly is setting sustainability standards. So I would be in favor. I'm not in favor of of seeing EV chargers in every business place. But as I have stated formally, I don't think it was read into the record when I was out of town in July. But I have stated officially that I think with apartment complexes, where people who perhaps want to buy an electric car, but they have a carport, that is either subsidized by the city or it appears in an ordinance and we get support from our developer community. And I think hotels is another place where people do drive in from out of the region and would appreciate a charger. But per se, I own an EV vehicle. I never charge it. Now I know our city manager drives from far away, so he needs to charge up before he drives back to Eagle Mountain. For many of us who are driving under 5 miles, which now the old statistic used to be 30%, but now 40% of trips that people make in their vehicles is under 5 miles. So most people who own EVs don't need to plug it in every time they go somewhere. They come home but it's the people who live in apartment complexes. Those of us that live in single family residences. I know my garage is equipped with a tier 2, but a lot of people can't afford it or they live in an apartment complex. And that's where I'd like to see our ordinance make sure that any future of the high density multifamily includes at least, what did you say, 20? I wrote it down, 30%. I like that, 30% have the circuitry ready.
The new Ivory multifamily building on the west end of the city does have, they install chargers within their garage of each building.
Do you know what percentage of the parking stalls?
No, like,
But see, that's
you know, a
free
handful,
market
but-
deciding, hey, you know what, we want to offer this to make our property more desirable, to put it to an ordinance to make people, to me, that's
Yeah, so there's a guy by the name of Hanko. I don't know if you know Hanko from PacSize. You probably met him in years past, but he started a group called Leaders for Clean Air, and they would give charging stations to businesses. You could get 10 of them, and then it was kind of a pay it forward, and it's happened all over the valley. They've done incredible things with it, but they've kind of led their own initiatives. They've really encouraged other CEOs to make it a priority. I think I would definitely, I want to think about it more, but I think I'm definitely more likely to support EV ready so that, you know, if there is that demand, you know, 2 decades down, that you're not ripping up entire parking structures at developments. But I would oppose requiring the actual installation of a
even
final product.
incentives, you know, I can see lowering impact fees and incentives are one way to think about things, but requiring, you know, the free market, that's what they're good at. If Ian's stats are true,
Then they're gonna
then
need
they're not dumb.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, let's do this, and instead of us saying, hey, we're gonna require.
Who pays for the charge, which has been kind of contentious,
That would be up to
right?
the property owner. We're not
Which
we're not
you don't
proposing a
want to
standard.
thwart Market
Yeah.
responses by making a substitute for, you know, we have gas stations, right? So we would have charging stations that should be probably somewhat incentivized by profit.
And it's hard
That's
to know,
why
it's
they're
hard to know
there.
where things are gonna go. It's hard
Yeah.
to,
Mhm.
you know, there's people that are coming up with
You
charging.
show
drive.
sales increasing
Just-
to 23, but Wall Street Journal's had multiple articles, multiple in the past few months about how EV sales are seriously slowing down.
Mhm.
Like you saw this big adoption, people who want it have it, but the companies are struggling because they can't sell their inventory.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in
That's-
the used car market.
That's why I feel so strongly that we need public policy that allows people to get into that area, because we have terrible ozone pollution that's invisible and directly tied to automobiles.
And I think it's important to allow and to force. I think there's just there's a careful balance between the two of them.
Well, and we're also responsible in governance for the health and safety of our citizens. And to me, the air pollution problems along the Wasatch Front, it is our responsibility as government leaders to be looking toward how do we protect the safety and the health and well-being of our citizens. And the invisible killer is ozone, the particulate you see in the air. But EV vehicles, I mean, eventually the energy generation outside of our region that we take to charge our EV vehicles is going to catch up.
Did
But
we
I think
interrupt you,
we're
Ian? If you have
responsible
more to
for
go?
the future.
Just a little bit more. I'll
Okay,
just-
let's let you finish. Yep.
So just some additional considerations with EV readiness that we think are important is that requiring the same standards for ADA stalls that we require anyway. And then for site design and maintenance, if we do decide to adopt some kind of requirement, that, you know, when you install a charger, you put up some kind of protective elements, people can't just run it right over. And that you keep the charger in good condition, because we do find that oftentimes that's a frustrating aspect of charging a car, is that the charger's not in good condition.
Yes,
And then as far as cost of charging goes, which Councilmember Highland brought up, we don't think it makes sense to impose any kind of requirement on someone who decides to construct an EV charger about whether they decide to require payment or not. That's kind of up to the property owner, because they're paying the electrical bill. And then for applicability, the recommendation from Utah Clean Energy was that we apply it to new construction within our city, and then alterations where the work area would exceed 50% of the original building area. So substantial remodels where you're seeing a lot of stuff being ripped up, or if more than 10 parking spaces are being modified. So for EV stuff, that's the additional considerations I have. And then I have bike parking stuff, but do you guys have any other thoughts to add on that? Feedback? Okay.
So can we, just to wrap up on that, what I'm hearing is maybe it's beneficial to look at where the market's going just on its own and make sure our numbers are calibrated with that. We can come back with, with a little firmer of an outline of a potential ordinance. We can explore if there are ordinances that have incentives, they incentivize these things, and what the incentive is for doing this kind of work. Would that be helpful to kind of bring this back in a little while after a little more research?
especially meeting state statute.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yep,
Okay, Mike, you're writing notes?
I got it.
Okay, I'll just move on to bike parking really quickly. So there's not a ton of research on this. We're just proposing that we codify the bike parking requirements that are found in our form-based code draft to be utilized citywide for new developments. So this would only apply to new commercial development and multifamily development, or mixed use if they're one on top of the other. So there's language in our form-based code draft about what bike parking facilities are, like what the standards for those are. And then there's a table in our form-based code draft about what the ratio is, like how many stalls would be required per 1,000 square feet. So we just think it makes sense to maybe codify that citywide, since it's already in our form-based code draft, but that would be our proposal on bike parking.
So an example then for, you ride your bike up to a bank. I mean, I'm trying to think how many stalls, how many bicycle spaces we're talking about for an average retail space.
It depends on like how large the space is. So
Right, I get that. That's what I'm trying to think of, that.
Probably close to 2. I mean, we don't have a ton of buildings that are over 5,000 square feet. So, one bike rack is gonna
I
solve
think the
that.
thought is that it's probably prohibitive to ride your bike to a place if there's nowhere to lock it up. So that's kind of where this came from, but.
I mean, I'm very supportive of this idea, and I like the mayor's idea of making this as friendly, as we move toward truly offering our residents what they keep asking for, which is walkability and transportation alternatives. So I don't want to shove anything down anybody's throat. But I'd love for our CHBA to work with the economic development department. I mean, I know that falls under economic development, and think of ways to not only for new buildings, but help to transform our existing and incentivize our existing businesses to be more friendly, to think about, whether it's grocery stores or coffee houses and all the places that people would love to walk or roll. But it's so unfriendly right now to walk or roll to get to so many places. You often get shoved into a no sidewalk car entrance into a parking lot. And then you're in this parking lot with all these cars moving around. It's something that we're gonna take in a phased in approach. So I want to really commend you that you're bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys have thoughts on this? Anybody else?
I appreciate Councilmember Burrell. I know how passionate she is. I would honestly though lean to the same type of incentive. I think it's great. I think they 100% should. I mean, if we really live in a bikeable community, new development should make room to people to park bikes, but I still think it's a free market principle, and I would love to incent them to do it, but I don't think a requirement is where I would fall on it. So,
How do the other members feel? How does
I
Councilman
think
Newell
as soon as
feel?
you tell private industry that you're gonna demand that. We wanna be inviting, we wanna create barriers. It's already.
Because the question is where's. I mean, what's the limit to requiring them to do these things? Is it
Well, if you go back,
Well,
to.
it's just a question?
I know.
I don't know the answer.
Well,
It's
I'm just saying
hypothetical.
that I'm old enough to say, if I go back to your age, there wasn't an ADA.
We're 10 years
So-
apart.
Oh, yeah, we're right there together. I know, I'm just a chick. Anyways, the thing is, there was a time we didn't have ADA. And then we said, oh yeah, there's the people in wheelchairs. And I think we're at a point now that we're at a tipping point where we say, people who walk and ride are not second-class citizens. They have the right to be able to be protected and to have proper space. So we can hang back. That's our right as a council majority to vote whether, how we do this. But I am definitely an advocate for being on the front side of adopting to say people that walk and roll are as first class of citizens as when I'm behind the wheel of my motor vehicle.
yeah.
We do regulate.
One last point, that we really got to move on, but Sean will know this from last year in LPC, and Matt knows this, and Jared, every LPC meeting we go to, the subject is the state wants to take our land use authority away. Because development is complaining that cities make their life too hard and that they have to spend, they can't even make projects pencil. And, I don't shed a single tear for them because, they're some of the most wealthy people around. But that's what the narrative is. And so to make things even harder, especially when we require them, it to me leads down a path of even further encouraging the state to take away our land use authority. So that's one of the ways that I'm going about looking at this issue. But anyway, so I think that would be my thought process. I think that was a really good discussion, Ian. Thank you for all of that. That was informative, and I honestly think it was valuable. So thank you.
Thank you.
So the last item, well, actually second to last, we have a review of calendars and upcoming events. September City Hall Lobby Art Exhibit. The artists are Deborah Day and Jack Cuckett. Oh man, anybody else want to try to pronounce that? Whatever it is, yeah, I'm sure he's a great artist. The block party at Hillside Plaza will be Monday, September 30th from 5:30 to 7:30, and that's gonna be at Hillside Plaza. The Arts Council Hallow Inc. will be held October 1st through the 31st, and this is an online social media pen and ink daily drawing tutorial. I think that's cool. Hopefully we'll get a lot of people to participate. The Mayor's Town Hall will be Tuesday, October 8th from 6 to 8 at the City Hall Colmore Room, and that is in reference to the Heights project. We didn't get this on here, but Councilmember Burrell will also have one on the 10th for her District 4. The Monster Mash will be held Friday, October 25th from 5 to 7 at the Cottonwood Heights Rec Center. The November elections, goodness gracious, early voting starts October 28th through the 1st from 2 to 7, and that's at the City Hall Colmore Room. Election Day, obviously November 5th, and that'll be open all day from 7 to 8 in the Colmore Room. And then the Light the Heights, goodness, December 2nd, I can't.
Heights.
Yeah.
There's one more. The Arts Council is having a holiday show, December 2nd from 5 until 7:30 PM at the, I'm sorry. Arts Council is having a holiday show Friday, December 6th at Butler Middle School from 7 until 8:30 PM.
Wow, I want to hear more about it. So let's get more information for our next meeting. Next meeting. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that.
Put in the next business notice that we're going to be moving the November 5th.
Great,
Council
great.
meeting.
Yes.
Put that in the
Can we
calendar,
put our meeting calendar? Yep, the changes. Thank you, Councilmember Heather. And then we do have an item to discuss in a closed meeting pertaining to litigation and property acquisition. So could I get a motion to exit our not
Suzanne.
close?
Here, I'll try it.
Suzanne,
I'll try it.
oh.
Okay, then you have
Can I try it?
Councilmember.
Can I try it? I motion to close our work session and open our closed session to discuss litigation
And now look at Shane.
and then I look at Shane and say, did I do okay?
Property act.
And property acquisition. So I motion that. So you
All in
second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Let's take, we have about 20 minutes.